Hello fungi friends, I got myself some cordyceps. These are Cordyceps militilaris. They are an entomopathogenic fungi, and that's a big word, but what it means is they attack and infect insects for food. So this is a parasitic fungus that will infect the larvae of cicadas, and actually up to about 50 other insect species here in the United States. Cordyceps militilaris is the most common kind of cordyceps we have in the United States. It is also one of the only and easily findable types of cordyceps that we have in the United States. Most cordyceps that grow are down in sort of rainforest areas, South America, Central America. There's a lot of cordyceps diversity, but usually cordyceps tend to be very, very specific to their animal hosts, and usually it's almost always insects. The Last of Us is this phenomenal video game which showed us cordyceps jumping the species barrier and infecting humans. It was a strain of Ophiocordyceps sinensis, which are usually ones that are found in the mountains of Tibet and have sort of a long history of traditional use in Chinese medicine and Western or Eastern medicine traditions. But Western medicine is starting to kind of take note of cordyceps because there's some interesting bioactive compounds in cordyceps that could potentially be used to help fight cancers and viruses. But I will tell you straight up that cordyceps are probably not going to infect us as humans. I did make a video about this, and everyone keeps saying, well, yeah, but what if cordyceps evolve? You know, what if the temperatures rise? What if we don't have any drugs to fight them? And I will say that the HBO show is a phenomenal and very interesting bit of sci-fi, but there's a couple of things that I really just want to point out that make the sort of idea of a cordyceps zombie apocalypse unrealistic. Cordyceps are really good at infecting insects, but they're not very good at infecting mammals or animals in general besides insects, because insects have inside of them what's called hemolymph. And so the mycelium of this mushroom can grow all the way through an insect, and that's how it sort of forces some of those ants to like climb up a branch and then spread a mushroom out of its head. Cordyceps militilaris doesn't do that. This infects insects in their larval stage, so it doesn't really zombify them. But it is related to the ones that cause those kind of zombie ants, and you might have seen the footage of that on like a Planet Earth kind of thing. And that's really cool because this mycelium completely colonizes like the animal's body. The little insect is full of hemolymph. It doesn't have separate tissues or circulatory system. It just sort of has a liquid inside that gets colonized by mycelium. And like 80% of the insect's mass and body is like hydraulically controlled by this fungus as it marches up at a branch. Incredible bit of nature and great bit of sci-fi that Last of Us borrowed from. The difference, though, what makes this unrealistic is that these things are very specific to insects and really can't infect humans in the same way. There are a couple of cordyceps that infect humans. Guess what? They cause a mild skin rash. And no amount of genetic modification or evolution is going to cause this fungus or any of these cordyceps fungi to really be able to become super pathogenic in humans and then turn us into zombies, right? Like they could potentially become better at causing skin rashes, and maybe there'll be more cordyceps that jump to humans, but they're going to be pretty mild symptoms as they won't be able to infect our bodies the way that they infect insects. And in the show, they sort of say, yeah, but what about rising temperatures? Well, rising temperatures will result in more fungal diseases. That's absolutely true. But it's not going to turn us into zombies. We're going to get more skin diseases. We're going to get more respiratory issues. There will be more fungal diseases, but they're going to be pretty boring for the most part. There'll be rashes. There'll be respiratory things. There'll be, maybe skin things. The fact that we do have drugs to fight fungi, we have a whole class of different kinds of fungicides, azoles and things like that. They're relatively toxic to us, so we don't have as many fungicides relative to antibacterials kind of thing. I'll give you guys a few more looks at these because they're just really, really cool. All of these little bumps on the cordyceps, the orange Cheez-It thing, are actually where the spores of this mushroom are dispersed. This is an ascomycete fungi rather than a basidiomycete, so it has a different way of packaging its spores. And you can see all these little dots here, which is the sort of the fertile surface of how the spores are coming out of this mushroom. In nature, you'd never find them clustered like this. These are cultivated on a grain base, not insects. but I believe they're able to grow on that base and produce fruiting bodies. There's a great book out there about cordyceps cultivation written by William Padilla Brown, so you can check out that if you want to grow cordyceps like this at home. These were sent to me by my friend Gretchen, Mushroom Musketeer, a friend on TikTok and Instagram, and she grows these herself, and she sent me a little thing of them, and I'm going to show you guys how to cook them. Anyhow, yeah, these aren't going to turn you into a zombie. No matter what evil scientist or nefarious government organization or whatever scenario you can dream up, it's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. And I don't mean to rain on people's parade. Some people seem legitimately upset that there will not be a fungal zombie apocalypse. But you know, it's it's just life. So I'm gonna take a couple of these off for you guys, and I'm just gonna use my hands to kind of pop some off, and we're gonna cook some up. This grain base is probably edible if I wanted to. I've heard of people baking it into like crackers and doing other things with it, taking the grain cake and doing animal feed or things like that. Ooh, this is super satisfying to kind of pull these off here. These really do look like Cheetos. It's absolutely wild. I might keep the grain cake around, just kind of mess around with it. I know there's a company out there who takes like spent Cordyceps mycelium and makes like a special product they add to other stuff that reduces the bitterness. So for like processed coffee drinks, they can add less sugar because they add some Cordyceps mycelium, basically. Extract of Cordyceps mycelium, and then that makes your coffee less bitter, so you don't need as much sugar. And that's like already on the market. You know, we are eating Cordyceps products and you may not even know about it. And that's funny because in the show, they explain that somehow Cordyceps got into our food and then mutated, and then like we all got sick within a couple of days, which is also just very unrealistic for any kind of epidemic to have something spread quite that fast without us knowing it, especially in the food system, which we test rigorously and carefully. So the explanations in the show for how the disease spread didn't really sit right with me as like a scientist or someone with some basic knowledge of epidemiology kind of thing. You know, there's already cordyceps in our food. They're not mutating and turning us into zombies. They're helping our coffee be less bitter. But, you know, now you know. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my pan on here. And we're going to stick these things in a hot pan, and I'll show you how they cook up. They are really, really tasty. These are extremely delicious mushrooms. You can also dry them and make tinctures and other kind of nutritional supplement type things with them, but I'm just going to cook these up because I'm a big proponent of just eating mushrooms. You know, people are always asking me, what can you do with mushrooms? And I say, well, you know, the best thing you can do is just eat them. I'm going to drop those in, raise you guys up just a little bit here. I'm going to turn that down. So I'm going to do a little bit of a dry fry here, so I don't have too much oil or butter in the pan. I'm just going to put a little bit of heat on them. There we go. So I've got these at about medium heat. I'm just going to let them fry off for a minute or two. They're not very thick mushrooms, so there's not a whole lot that needs to cook. They're sort of, you know, little noodle-sized things. Get them nice and crispy though, and then I'll drop a little bit of butter on. So I'm doing the dry fry first to kind of get them crisp and cook any water out of them, and then I'll drop a little bit of butter on. So eating these doesn't turn you into a zombie. Having these around you doesn't turn you into a zombie. The worst that's going to happen from being around cordyceps is, again, probably a skin rash. The show has an interesting thing where the fungi can somehow hear noise but not sense light, and that doesn't make sense to me because fungi can definitely sense light. I don't really know if they can sense like vibration and noise in the same way that like an animal would, but they can definitely sense light. And so I think it's kind of odd that like the zombies can somehow not sense light. You know, can't see but they can hear. Just seems like a weird plot device. And there's just a lot of things in the show that I like. Really enjoy the show, and it's clearly really well written and well done by HBO, but they like could have talked to an actual mycologist. I think that would have in some ways made it much more interesting, because the biology of the cordyceps mushroom would have been kind of more fascinating to me. I think it's actually more realistic. You know, fungi should be spreading by spores, not by bites, not by direct physical contact. You know, mycelium can spread for miles, but the sort of the idea that somehow they're all like connected and communicating through vibrational energy doesn't make a lot of sense. There would be like chemical mechanisms by which they'd be talking to each other in the way that fungi do, but not so much, you know, vibrational stuff. But it's, yeah, again, better plot device to do it the way they do it in the show. I get why they made the decisions they made, but I just, you know, I'm also sensing a lot of mycophobia in society as people kind of get into this, and they're like, oh my god, everything is going to cause Last of Us. And it's like, well, our body is already filled with fungi. We have yeast in our skin. We have all sorts of fungi in our guts. You know, relative to the number of different types of bacteria, we don't have that many fungi on us or in us, but we still have some very important ones that are part of our microbiome and our skin and our digestion. And the one thing that eating lots of mushrooms appears to do is to actually help stimulate our immune system and make our immune system more robust and sort of stimulated the growth of white blood cells, T cells, all sorts of stuff like that. And, you know, that's what I'm doing here. I'm eating some cordyceps. I'm going to be stimulating my immune system by the sugars in the cordyceps breaking down in my gut, being absorbed by parts of my white blood cells and being incorporated into their sort of defense system and how they recognize like foreign particles and invaders. It also breaks down and selects for a more diverse set of bacteria in my gut, which will also help to increase and stimulate my immune system, which means that in the future I'll be better at warding off potential fungal invaders and disease. So, you know, overall, eating these cordyceps actually makes me stronger and more likely to resist any fungal zombie apocalypse, because my immune system will be stronger. So, I don't know, I just think it's kind of interesting that everyone's so stoked on cordyceps right now. And I'm going to do sort of a full special podcast episode about it where I address like all the points from Last of Us, and I go over some of the science of like real cordyceps and some of the real species and what kinds of insects they infect. There's some really, really cool looking cordyceps out there. We've been a little disappointed that in the show, like all the infected don't actually look like cordyceps mushrooms. They've been using like a lot of slime mold motifs, which aren't even fungi, and some random clubs and other stuff, but you know, they can incorporate more. So anyhow, there's the cordyceps. They're getting kind of crispy and really dark orange. I'm going to do a little taste test here. Let's try some, just show you this is what I've got. A little like thing of orange crispy noodles. Oh my god. Those are so sweet and nutty, but like chewy. And crispy. This is an exceptionally good edible mushroom. This is really, really, really tasty. There's no earthiness. There's none of that kind of overwhelming, you know, shiitake or portobello flavor. This is just really sweet and nutty and texturally chewy and crunchy. Oh my gosh. I could eat an entire bowl of these. Actually, I am going to eat this entire bowl. I just don't know if I want to do it on camera. Wow. These are exceptional. I'm so stoked on these. Thank you again, Mushroom Musketeer. Definitely give her a follow on Instagram and TikTok. She might have a YouTube as well. I'm not totally sure. But, you know, it kind of looks like little octopus tentacles, like super tiny carrots or something. I don't know. They look like, you know, I'll show you the fresh and the cooked side by side. Here's the fresh. Here's the cooked. Side by side. I wouldn't eat raw cordyceps, but the cooked ones taste very, very good. I'm impressed. That's pretty cool, huh? All right. Oh my goodness. That is exceptional. Well, hey fungi friends. Hope you enjoyed watching me cook up some cordyceps. It's pretty fun to get to play around with a little block of them here. But I assure you, as much as you may want it, Cordyceps are not going to cause a zombie apocalypse, but they are pretty tasty. So I will bid you all a good night. If you want to learn more from me, check out my podcast here on YouTube or my website and all my other social links. But be well. Wishing you all much love. Bye. Don't fall prey to the Last of Us.